I agree.
Okay, welcome everyone. We are very, very happy to have a great speaker, Nicolas Courien from Paris, and he will tell us about parking on trees. And go ahead, Nicolas.
Thanks a lot for the invitation. Well, great speaker, you will judge after the talk, but I will try at least to entertain you for the beginning of the week and the year, which I wish all the best for you guys and for all of us. And yeah, so the subject is about parking on random trees and a connection with the classical Erdős-Rényi random graph. It's supposed to be recreational, so don't hesitate at all to interrupt. Feel free. I want it to be interactive. So it's a joint work with Alice Contat, who is a PhD student at Orsay, and that is posted on arXiv. The paper is on arXiv since a couple of months. Okay, so this is just a teaser of the talk. It's the objects we will encounter during our journey. So we will start with parking cars on trees. Of course, I will describe the model, but on the way, we will meet the continuum random tree of Aldous, the Erdős-Rényi random graph, we will meet stable process, and more exotic objects such as gross fragmentation trees and even planar maps at the end of the talk, if time permits. So let me start right away with the model of parking on a tree. Of course, it is not for application purpose, but it's a model of hydrological modeling of rain on a draining system. But the model is as follows. You have a parking lot that you are given. Here it's fixed, and it's a tree. The tree is oriented, meaning that you have a vertex downstairs here that is the root vertex, and so that all the edges are oriented towards this vertex. So it's an acyclic oriented graph, which is a tree. And you imagine that this is your parking lot. So every vertex is a parking spot that can accommodate at most one car. Okay? And then, so far the model is deterministic, and then you let cars arrive sequentially on the vertices of this parking lot. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And you will park those cars using the simplest procedure, meaning that when a car arrives on a parking spot, it parks on its arrival spot if it's free. So the car number 1 parked here, car number 2 will park here, and car number 3 will arrive on the same spot as number 1. So since this spot is taken, the simplest for car number 3 is just to follow the arrows downstairs until it finds an available parking spot where it parks. Okay? And I will remember that by putting a number 1 on this arrow, meaning that a flux of one car has gone through that edge. Okay? So the same here, car number 4 will try to park here, and this spot is taken, so it will follow this arrow and park here. Okay? The same here, 5, 6, 7, and look at 8. The car number 8 arrives here, the spot is taken, follow this arrow, the spot is taken, and it arrives at the bottom of the tree. And so this car, number 8, did not manage to park. So it will just exit the tree, sadly, without parking. Okay? And the same for this car, number 9. 5 is taken, 7, 3, 4. So it's an outgoing flux of car. Is the model clear? Okay. So, of course, this model is a more general is in a more general setting compared to the very well-known parking on the line. So the line is just this very simple tree oriented towards the left. And this model of parking on car with relation with hash tables and so on has a huge literature in combinatorics and probability, started with Können and Weiss in the 60s, and then work of many authors. And the key word there is that there is there is a phase transition. Well, there is no phase transition, let's say, when the density of car is almost 1. And the key word is that this is linked to the additive coalescent. Here, additive coalescent. If you don't know, that's not a problem. Okay, so now let me describe for you what is the model that we will put on the parking lot and on the cars. So we will have two levels of randomness. The tree itself, so the parking lot, will be random, and it will be a uniform Cayley tree of size n. So what is this beast? It's just a tree which is not plane. It has no planar embedding, but all the vertices are labeled from 1 up to n. And we take such an object uniformly at random. So it's famous that there are n to the n-2 Cayley trees of size n. So we pick one uniformly at random. More precisely, we will distinguish one vertex, here the number 6, which is the root that we will place downstairs, so that all the edges are going towards the root. Okay? Is that clear? So that will be our model of parking lot, a uniform rooted Cayley tree of size n. And then, conditionally given this structure, we will let the cars arrive IID on uniformly on the vertices, the simplest you can think of. Okay, so they arrive one by one and pick the arrival vertex uniformly at random between 1 and n. And the goal will be to identify and to study a phase transition that will appears as the number of cars that I will always denote by m will increase. So n is the size of the tree, it's fixed but large, and m is the sequential parameter of the number of cars arriving one by one. Okay, n size of the tree, m number of cars. Oops, sorry, should have. Yep. Okay, so the theorem that was proved a couple of years ago by Lackner and Panholzer using combinatorial and methods, analytic combinatorics, is the following. We will suppose that the density, that the proportion of cars, m over n, tends to alpha. So alpha is in between 0 and 1. And we will denote by d like discarded, d of n and m, the number of cars that did not manage to park. Okay, so you have a tree of size n, you launch m cars, and you look at the number of cars that did not manage to park. So what is surprising is that if the density of car is below half, so if you launch less than 50% of the available parking spots, then the number of cars that did not manage to park is tight as n grows. That means that almost all the cars manage to park, except probably a few cars near the route where there are local conflicts. And if alpha is bigger than half, so if you launch 55% of the parking lot's capacity, then the number of cars that will not manage to park is linear with n. It grows with n, like c times n. Okay, so it's a phase transition, like in percolation. If you're subcritical, then some quantity stays finite when n grows, and if you're supercritical, some quantity grows with n. Okay, and the goal here in this talk will be to study more precisely what happens at the critical point, alpha is equal to 1/2. Okay, so let me just say that since then, there's been a lot of works extending this theorem to a more general context. So let me mention Jones, Goldschmidt, Pliszkowski, and Alice, who extended this theorem to so far the most general model is Galton-Watson trees, critical Galton-Watson tree condition to be large, and arrivals of cars that may depend on the degree. And we still have a phase transition with an alpha, which is model dependent, of course. Okay, but I will not speak about that in this talk, and I will focus on the model I presented. So to illustrate this theorem, you may not believe it, but you will believe in the simulations. So here is a video of the parking process. So you sample a uniform Cayley tree of size n. Here, n is 2000. It looks like this. It's a fractal object. And you will let the cars arrive one by one. The cars will be this little dot that I hope you can all see, these little black dots. Okay, so let's make the simulation evolve. So you have more and more cars that arrive. And up, let me pause it. And when there are conflicts here, for example, if two cars arrive on the same spot, then one has to drive to find a new spot. And I indicate that the flux on the edges by the color and the width of the edges. So when you see some orange stuff here, that means that some car had to drive a little bit to find its spot. Okay, so you see that as long as m is less than 50% times n, which is less than 1000, there are no major conflicts. Almost all cars manage to park within a few steps. Okay, but when you approach here, when you approach the critical point, which is 1000, you will suddenly see major conflict at the scale of the tree appearing. Look, you see that, wow, here you have major jams, major traffic jams, meaning that if a car arrives here, the car will probably have to drive until the route here and exit the tree. Okay, oops. Let me show for you the rest of the simulation. And if you go super critical, so way above 1000, then you will see that almost all the tree is you have traffic jams at the scale of the tree. So let me give you snapshots, not the video, of what you see at the subcritical, critical, and supercritical regime. So this is also a Cayley tree of size couple of thousand. And when you have thrown 0.4 times n cars, so you see that all the clusters, what I will denote by clusters is the clusters of parking spots that are filled by a car. So you see that all the clusters are small, and all the blue that you see are free spots. Okay. You see that at the critical point, you have clusters which looks like random and have the scale of the tree. And if you are supercritical, then there is one giant cluster of spots that are taken, and a few spots that are free on the leaves of the tree. Okay. So the goal will be to study this object here, at the critical point. So let me present the theorem. So the theorem itself is a bit hard to digest, but the way I will prove the theorem, I hope, is easier to understand and is the take-home message, not the theorem itself, but the coupling that I will present afterwards. Okay, so let us zoom at the critical window, at the critical point, n/2, which is the critical density, and we will look at the critical window. So the critical window will have a width of n to the 2/3 around this n/2. So the lambda is just a parameter which varies in R, so that when I put m to be this number, I vary around n/2, a little bit below and a little bit after. And I will denote by Cn star and Cni, where R is bigger than 1, the sizes, number of vertices of the connected components, the clusters of the parking process. Okay, so what are the clusters? Well, these are this. You cut everything when you see some blue here, and you will have some clusters, and you look at their sizes, which I denote by Cni of lambda. And I put a star. I have to distinguish the one of the root. It has a special role. And I also record dn of lambda. It's the number of cars that did not manage to park. It's the flux. The theorem that we established with Alice is the following. If you renormalize the sizes of the clusters by n to the 2/3, and if you renormalize the flux by n to the 1/3, then you have a limit, which is explicit. I will not describe it here. Wait a little bit, but it's explicit. Okay, so we understand dynamically what happens in the critical window. So let me show you pictorially what we prove. You have your parking process around criticality. You look at the clusters of parked cars, and you look at their sizes, and we show that their sizes converges. Okay. And that's the flux. Okay, the flux of car. Look at n to the minus 1/3 dn. This process dn is the process in blue. It's an increasing process. Why? Because you have more and more cars that do not manage to park if you add cars one by one. And we understand exactly what is the limit of this process d of lambda. It's a random process.
Nicolas?
Yes.
Can you just say a word about the case of just taking the line and do you
Yes.
see it up to some lambda, etc.?
Yes. So on the line, what is the critical density? Let's make a poll. It's 1.
Well,
You have to launch almost all of the parking spot capacity to see a flux at the root. So there is no phase transition there. Or if you wish, the phase transition happens at alpha is equal to 1. So it's as if your critical percolation threshold in percolation is 1. But there, the interesting stuff happens when you zoom around alpha is equal to 1, and when you launch n minus square root n cars. So you have a parking spot of n cars on the line, and you look at what happens when you have n minus square root n cars. Okay?
thanks.
Very good question. Okay. So if you have not understood this theorem, it's not a big deal. You just need to remember what is the parking process. And now I will describe a connection with this parking process with the Erdős-Rényi random graph, and from which you can guess how we prove the theorem. So what is the idea? The idea, as usual in random graph theory, is to reveal the random graph underlying U step by step. You don't want to reveal the whole parking lot at once, but you want to reveal it piece by piece, keeping as much randomness as you can, because this helps you. So more formally, you have your parking lot here with n spots, and you have launched n cars, and you will reveal what I call T and M here is just the clusters of parked cars. So it's a forest. It's a forest of trees and cars on the trees. That so that all the vertices are taken except the root here. So why? Because formally I take the forest made of all edges emanating from a parked vertex. Okay. So if you wish, you reveal the clusters so far. Okay, so this T and M will evolve as M increases. And it's not hard to see that T and M is a Markov chain. It's almost abstract nonsense. But the idea is that the way the components evolve in this Markov chain, it's really reminiscent of multiplicative merging, of the multiplicative coalescent. And actually, we will make a redirection of the edges and to have a very strong coupling with a variation on the Erdős-Rényi random graph. Okay, so the goal here will be to explain you this variation on the Erdős-Rényi random graph and the coupling. But for that, I will cheat a little bit, and I will talk about parking on mappings and not on trees. You will see in a minute. It's a small cheating, but it helps a lot for the technicalities. Okay. You can start fresh. That's a new story if you wish. What is Erdős-Rényi? Erdős-Rényi, I guess you all encountered this model in your life. You have n vertices labeled from 1 up to n, and you add edges uniformly at random between those vertices one by one. More formally, those will be oriented edges, EI with an arrow, which has a starting and an ending vertex, xi, yi, which are just IID uniform over 1 up to n. Okay, and I will denote by EI without the arrow the unoriented version of this edge. So what is the Erdős-Rényi? The Erdős-Rényi is you just start from your n vertices and you have added m edges uniformly at random. And you denote that by GNM. Okay? Now I will make a slight variation on this Erdős-Rényi. And this variation that we will call with Alice the frozen Erdős-Rényi. What is this frozen process? It evolves as follows. You have two types of vertices, the standard vertices, which are white, and the frozen vertices, which are blue. And the evolution is as follows. In the frozen Erdős-Rényi, that I will denote F, you start at time 0 from n isolated vertices, exactly as in the Erdős-Rényi. And now you will add edges one by one, but you will have a rule to add the edges. So the rule is as follows. If you want to add an edge, this edge that you can see here in dotted red lines, between two components that are trees, you have no cycles, no loops, no cycles. If you want to add an edge between two trees, you do add this edge. So this is exactly as the Erdős-Rényi. If you want to add an edge between two vertices of the same component that is a tree, then you do add this edge. But then this component, you create a cycle. And so you will declare that this component is frozen, blue. And now the evolution between that will use blue components is a little bit different. So let me explain. If you want to add an edge between a blue component and a white component will just be trees without cycles. Then if the edge goes from white to blue, you add it. But if it goes from blue to white, you don't add it. Okay? And if you want to add an edge between two blue components, then you don't. Okay, so this process is the same as Erdős-Rényi, except that sometimes you don't add the edges that you would have added in the Erdős-Rényi. And those edges are precisely the edges that connect a component with a surplus. A surplus is when you are not a tree, when you have cycles in your component. If you want to add an edge between a component that has a surplus towards another one, then you don't. Okay? Because here, if regardless of the direction, you would have added an edge going from a component with surplus to another one. Okay? So you don't add the edges that goes from component with loops to other ones. Okay. Again, better than the definition, a simulation. So what is this process doing? You start with your bunch of vertices. Here, n is equal to 500, and you add edges one by one. In the very beginning, you don't have loops, you don't have surplus, you don't have component with surplus. All the components are trees, so you are just looking at Erdős-Rényi. This is just plainly Erdős-Rényi. But at some point, you will create components with loops. So those are components with surplus. And those will be slowed a little bit down because you don't add the edges from blue to something else. For those who know, those components, they will appear at the critical density for Erdős-Rényi, which is 50%. So those components appear when you have added m is equal to n over 2, roughly, edges. Okay? But then you keep adding edges, discarding the ones that goes from blue to something else. So notice that the blue component, they still grow, but they grow a bit less fast than they should grow in the Erdős-Rényi. Okay? And in the end of the process, everything is blue. And you just have components, blue frozen components with a unique cycle in them. Why? Because you discard all the edges that would create another cycle in the component. Okay? Okay. So that's the Erdős-Rényi, the frozen Erdős-Rényi. Now, another story, parking on mapping. what is a mapping? A mapping, a uniform mapping, is just a way to encode an application from one n to one n. So all the vertices, they choose one target that I will call the parent. So the parent of 1 is 10, and all the targets of the vertices, they are just IID uniform in 1 up to n. Okay, so it's just encoding the mapping from 1 up to n to 1 up to n, and the target of an edge is just, or the parent of the edge is just the value the application gives to the number. Okay, so that produces for me an acyclic oriented graph, because from every vertex I've got a unique arrow that is pointing outwards this vertex. Okay, so believe me, but this model is very, very, very close to a uniform random tree on n vertices. Of course, it's not a tree because you see that there are some cycles there, but it's spirit very close. And I can very well define the parking process on a mapping. If I launch cars riding one by one on the vertices, then I can park them exactly with the same procedure as I would have done for trees. So car number 1 will park here, car number 2 will park here, so on, car number 3, where car number 4 will park. So if it arrives here, the spot is taken by 3, so it will just follow the arrow until it finds a spot, and so on. Okay, so it's same rule. But then the difference is that, look, if car number 8 arrives here, then to find a spot, it will follow the edge that is going outwards the vertex 7. And you see that it's trapped in a loop here. And so when a car is trapped in an endless loop like that, we will just say it cannot park. It's a discarded car. Okay, so it's the same as when the car reached the bottom vertex in the tree. Here, it's when a car is trapped in an endless loop. Okay, is the parking process on the mapping clear? Then I can define exactly as before the components that I have discovered, or the connected components of the parking when I have m cars, which I denote by em of n and m. And I will, just to remember the color code, when I have a loop on this component, you see, I have a loop here, I have a loop here, then I will color the component in blue, just blue like the frozen. Okay, and now here is the crux. The crux is that I will make a coupling between, on the first side, the frozen Erdős-Rényi, F and M, and on the second side, the parking on the mapping, M and M. And this coupling will be non-trivial, but it will be so that they have the same component, not the same geometry inside the components, but the same components. Here is the rule in a nutshell. Don't worry, I will do that step by step in a minute. But the rule is to use the edges that arrive in the Erdős-Rényi process, this edge EM with the starting point XM and the ending point YM will be interpreted in the parking process as follows. We will interpret that as a car arriving on XM. This car will drive until it parks here on this free spot. And then I will say that the parent of this vertex that the car discovered is given by the YM, the other extremity of the edges. Okay, so let's see that in practice. On the left-hand side, I will have the parking on mapping, and on the right-hand side, I will have the frozen Erdős-Rényi, and I will construct both objects from this set of oriented edges that I will add to the vertices. So I will first add this oriented edge, then this one, and so on and so forth. So what you see in the middle is just the set of oriented edges that I will use to build both processes simultaneously. Okay. This is just a reminder of the construction, but I will do that when needed. Okay. So remember, on the left, parking on mapping, and on the right, frozen Erdős-Rényi. On the first day, I will add this edge. So on the frozen Erdős-Rényi side, I just add the edge because I have no loops so far. So I just add plainly this edge. On the mapping side, I will interpret this edge as a car, number one, arriving on this vertex. So what does this car do? It just parks here, and then I will declare that the parent of this vertex in the mapping is given by the extremity of this edge. So I will add this edge. It seems like a complicated sentence just to add this edge, right? It's the same edge so far. For edge number 2, same thing. I will interpret this as a car arriving on this vertex, parking here, and I will then declare or reveal, if you prefer, the parent of the vertex in the mapping to be the extremity of this edge here. So far, same thing. The same with edge number 3. What happened with edge number 4? You see? So on the frozen side, I want to add this edge number 4. It connects two components which have no loops. So I just add it in the frozen. On the parking side, I interpret that as a car arriving on the number 3 here. But number 3 is the spot is taken. So the car number 4 has to drive to find this free spot here and parks here. And then I declare that the parent of this spot is given by the extremity of the edges here. So the parent of this guy is this guy. So you see that this is not the same edge. I have redirected the edge. But notice that everything stays in the same component here. The same component. Unoriented component. So just to remind you the rule, if a car arrives here, parks there, then I will add this edge in the mapping, which is not the same edge as the Erdős-Rényi. Okay, edge number 5, it's the same on both sides. Edge number 6. So look at this edge number 6. What does it do? On the right-hand side, I want to add an edge here. But I can do it because I have no loop. But if I do add it, then I create an unoriented loop in the Erdős-Rényi version. So I add the edge, but then I color the component in blue because now it has a loop. It is a frozen component. Okay. What do I do in the mapping side? Well, I interpret this edge as an arrival of a car, this vertex, an arrival of a car here. So what does it do? It follows the arrows until it finds a spot, which is this one. And then I declare that the parent of this guy is given by the target of this edge. So I add this orange edge here. And what do I discover on the left-hand side? Well, I discover a loop here, meaning that if I have a new car arriving on this component, it will be trapped in this loop. So I declare that the component is blue. At the same time, as in the frozen Erdős-Rényi, I declare the component being blue. Okay. So I can do that if I have added a loop on a single vertex. You see, if I add a loop on a single vertex on the Erdős-Rényi, then I add the edge, but I color the component in blue. And the same here on the parking process. I just consider that the car arrived here, parked there, declare that the parent of this vertex is itself. So I have a loop, I color in blue. Okay. let's do one more. What happens if I want to add this edge number 8 here in the frozen Erdős-Rényi? Remember that in the Erdős-Rényi, I don't add edges going from blue component to something else. So I don't add this component in the Erdős-Rényi case. And on the parking side, I interpret that as a car arriving on vertex number 7. But since the component was blue, that means that this car, if it follows the arrows, will be trapped in an endless loop. So that means that this number 8 is actually a discarded car. So you see that the discarded car exactly corresponds to the discarded edges in the construction. Okay, you can go on. It's pretty much complicated, but in the end, you see that I have a coupling between parking on mapping, frozen Erdős-Rényi, so that what? So that the components that you see on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, they have the same components, not the same geometry inside the component, but the same components. Okay? Theorem. This is actually a coupling. Well, I constructed it as a coupling, but the marginals that I see on the left and on the right, they are the good marginals, meaning that what I see on the left-hand side is actually the parking process or on a uniform mapping, and what I see on the right is the frozen Erdős-Rényi. Okay? So that's the main tool, and then let me use this tool to give you a couple of corollaries. So one corollary is the following. So remember that for a car to not to park, to be discarded, you needed a loop, right? You needed a loop to be trapped. And the loop corresponded to the loops in the Erdős-Rényi because a component was colored blue in both cases when it has a loop. So you must be convinced that the probability that n cars taken uniformly at random manage to park on, let's say, a tree or a mapping, it's the same. This probability should be related to the probability that the frozen Erdős-Rényi being acyclic, that you have no cycles, that you have not discovered any cycles. So there is a little trick here. It's not exactly being acyclic, but okay, it's related to, you have this factor. But being acyclic is a quantity that has been studied since Erdős, since Rényi, and it's actually a very nice number that if you pick m edges uniformly at random among n vertices, the probability to be acyclic, actually this decays like a funny critical exponent, n to the minus 1/6. And this exponent was seen already by Lackner and Panholzer, but using totally different techniques. They use analytic combinatorics, they were counting configuration. And here we just say that this number comes from the probability that a critical Erdős-Rényi random graph being acyclic. Okay, now let me do some more complicated stuff. So for those who know Erdős-Rényi, you know that the appearance of a giant component happens at the critical threshold, which is n/2. So in Erdős-Rényi, when you have n vertices, if you have added m edges, when you have added n/2 edges, then you have a giant component that appears. And the critical window is exactly n/2 plus or minus n2/3. And what Aldous proved in his famous 97 paper is that in this critical window, if you look at the sizes of the components and you renormalize them by n to the minus 2/3, then you see convergence towards a process. Complicated process, but a process which he coins the name multiplicative coalescent. Why? Because basically this process is a Markov process with values in L2, so that if you have two particles of mass x and y, they merge into a single particle of mass x plus y at a rate which is just the x times y, hence the name multiplicative coalescent. Okay, so it's very deep work. But you should be convinced that in our case with Alice, since we have a modification of the Erdős-Rényi, we should be able, and actually we were able, to prove that we have a modification of this process if you take into account the blue frozen component and the white standard component. So more precisely, if you look at the same critical window and you recall what are the sizes of the components in blue and in white, then you have a more complicated process here, the frozen multiplicative coalescent, so that the transitions are reminiscent of what we did in the discrete. Two white particles merge into a single particles at a rate which is x times y, but a blue merge with a white at a rate which is just half, because you cannot merge blue with white, you can only merge white with blue. So that's why the rate is divided by 2. And a white component can create a loop inside at a rate which is its mass squared over 2. Okay, so we have this process. And this process is the building block to prove the theorem that I described to you earlier, that the sizes of the components in the critical window, they converge, and that the flux converge. Okay. How much time do I have? 5 more minutes?
Yeah, you have at least 5 more minutes. You can go on until 12.
Good. 12. Maybe a bit less.
You're also allowed to stop before 12. It's permitted if you feel like it.
Let's see. Well, when I have nobody in the room, then I'll stop. Okay. So so far I have talked about the sizes of the components, but not of the geometry of the components. So let's go back to the initial model. So parking on a tree, I look at the critical point, n over 2 for the number of cars. Then I have these clusters of parked cars, which are these trees where all the spots are taken. And these trees, we call them fully parked trees. Why? Because they are trees like that with cars arriving on the vertices of the tree, so that every car will manage to park and there is no flux at the root. You have n+1 vertices for the tree, n cars, and they all manage to park. It's a fully parked tree. And the components are fully parked trees. They are precisely those guys. But then you may wonder, you may say, okay, those components, they should look like trees then. Not at all, because they are very strange trees. They are trees conditioned, or well, they are trees plus cars. So if you just look at the tree part, they are trees conditioned on the fact that it's possible to launch n cars, or biased if you wish, by the possibility to launch n cars so that they all park. And now I give you a question. If you want to maximize the probability on a tree of size n, if you want to maximize the probability that if you launch n cars, they all manage to park, what will you choose?
Can you tell us that it's a line already?
Yes, it's the line. The line is the most likely situation, well, the situation where the probability is the highest. Of course, the line is just one tree. So now you have a trade-off between probability of entropy and energy. So what will the tree choose? Being a standard tree of size, if it's of size k, then the height will be square root of k. Or will it tend to be like a line where the probability to accommodate n cars parking is higher? Then it's in the middle. With Alice, we proved that those trees, the fully parked trees, they are not standard usual Galton-Watson trees, and they are not line. We proved that the mean height, so if big N is the size of the tree, so it's the size of a given component, then the height, the distances in the tree, scales like n to the 3/4. So just like in between square root n and 1. And also the total flux. The total flux is the total distance traveled by the cars, grows like n to the 5/4, with very explicit constant there. And we have a conjecture. Actually, we believe that those trees, if you renormalize them by their diameter, and if you renormalize the flux of cars on the edges, they should converge towards a beast that I will pronounce the name here. It's the labeled gross fragmentation trees associated to 3 half-stable process, spectrally negative processes, trees that have been introduced very recently by Jean Berthoin and collaborators. So let me describe for you the beast, those trees. Well, at least heuristically. To describe those trees, you start with a version of a 3 half-stable Levy process, a version that starts from 1 and that is absorbed at 0, conditioned to die at 0. So it's a mild conditioning. And you interpret this process that you see here makes negative jumps as a branch of length, the time it takes for the process to die. And then that's the first branch of your tree. And then from each negative jump, you will start a new copy of your process here of the height given by the jump until it dies. And this will give you a new branch in your tree. You do that iteratively for all the jumps, etc., recursively. And then here is a version, illustrated version of the tree. You see, this is just one branch, and what you see, the width is just the value of the process on the branch. So you see it as negative jumps here. It jumps from a value here to a smaller value here. And you complete for each negative jump, you resample a process. You do that ad vitam aeternam, and in the end, you get a random tree. Well, now, this is a random tree, but then you have to perform a double degenerate conditioning on this tree to start from a particle of size 0 and to have mass 1. So these are complicated conditioning, but we did that with Jean and Igor recently. And this tree, with the mild, with the degenerate conditioning that I just described, this tree should be the limit here of the geometry of the components in the Park process. Wow, this seems a bit science fiction, and let me do a bit more science fiction. Those trees, actually, we knew them before, because those trees, they appeared in the theory of random planar maps. So random planar maps in a glimpse. So it's what is a planar map? So let's focus on triangulation. You have here 12 triangles. You glue them uniformly at random so that you produce a sphere here, and you see that as a graph. Okay, and when n is very, very large, there are exponentially many ways to glue triangles to form a sphere, and you pick one uniformly at random, and you have a graph that looks like this. Or if you try to embed it isometrically, you cannot. But if you try to embed it isometrically in R3, you see this fractal structure where you see spikes where vertices are, far apart. It's not smooth at all. Although it has the topology of the sphere, the metric is really of a fractal fashion. So this beast in the limit is very well known now by work of Le Gall, Mirmont. It's converging to the Brownian sphere, this equivalent of the Brownian motion in dimension 2. And if you take such a map, such a graph here, and you represent it as a cactus by, nailing down a face here at the bottom level, and let all the other vertices have a height which is just the distance to the face here that you nail downstairs. So you see like a cactus here, or a smoother version here. Behind this cactus, well, you see a tree, right? There is a tree hidden behind this structure. And this tree as a labeling. What is the labeling? Is just the perimeter when you slice at heights. This guy is the same as what should be the scaling limit of the connected components in the parking process up to a time Lamperti time transformation that I will not describe. So maybe I should stop here with the science fiction, and thanks you a lot for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Nicolas. Any questions?
I have one. Returning to my original question on the line.
Yes.
So if you just take a line with the spikes of fixed length coming out of this,
yep.
then you can represent what a density, a flux of cars in this spiked tree goes
yes.
to a flux in the line.
Yes.
Can this explain by just taking the distribution of these spikes in your random tree the difference?
So the model, yes and no. So let me say yes first. Of course, in the tree, if you have, say, you distinguish one point, you have a spine to this point, and all the bushes hanged on this tree, they will be described by just incoming flux of cars there. Mm-hmm. So if you do understand the flux of these incoming bushes, then you are mm-hmm. down to a process to a one-dimensional process of IID guys entering into your process.
Right.
This is something we use actually a lot with Olivier, that Alice also used, that Christina used, to find exactly what is the phase transition for many models of Galton-Watson trees. But the problem mm-hmm. there is that it's a bit recursive. Why? Because you want to understand the model, but the input in this model is the outgoing flux of the bush. Mm-hmm. But the outgoing flux of the bush is exactly what you want to understand. So this is a nice idea, but which turns into a kind of recursive distributional equation on the flux. Mm-hmm. But using that, you can have information on the threshold to find the good threshold for criticality. Mm-hmm. But getting to what we did with Alice, this dynamical process and understanding the geometry of the component, I think this is more complicated. But mm-hmm. it's a nice idea that indeed entered the game.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. Any more questions? Ariel is muted.
More questions, yeah. So Nicolas, why doing it on trees and not on what Stas would call realistic geometries?
Well, for many reasons. First, we can do it on trees. You know, that's the truth. But then you would say, first, what is the parking process if your graph is not acyclic? First, you need an acyclic graph. Because at text, if you cannot park, you need one direction to find another spot. You may say, oh no, let's perform simple random walk. Wow, but then it's a totally different model.
And it's just too complicated to track.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you stick to acyclic graph, then pretty much mapping and trees are the only realistic solutions. If you start performing random walks, then it's more realistic, but you lose all these connections with gross fragmentation trees, planar maps, and so on. So the true answer is that I'm doing this model because of all these connections that we found and that we were not expecting at all.
Mm. Okay. Any more questions? Okay, if not, then thank you very much, Nicolas, for
no problem.
A great talk. And I'm sorry, I said before 12, and I didn't realize you were surprised. It took me a few minutes to realize that I did +1 instead of -1. But I was trying to convert the time to Paris time. So I meant 11. But yeah, you can go on to 12 if you want. But
yeah, I figured out myself that you did a mistake.
yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Kevin. And
okay.
well,
Yeah,
try to
great
keep
to see you. Yeah.
And yeah, hope to see you in flesh soon.
Yeah. Well, let's wait for the pandemic to.
Well, before we retired.
That's true. Well, I was reading actually that the best time to hike in the Alps
Is now?
So they say now it's not. I mean, not now. It's winter, but in the summer, because all the chalet are empty and everything is nobody is there.
Well, if you find a chalet that is not empty, you just enter and you cough. And then
Yeah, so okay.
all right, guys.
See ya.
Toda raba.
Bye-bye.
So this was our last talk for this semester, and I guess we will continue in the next
For the
semester.
year.
In the next 5 years or so, 6.
Well, I closed the door behind me.
Yeah.
Enjoy your day, guys.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.